has a title for a reason, which you will discover as we go along. It's called All Flock Pickers Are Trade Canisius and Other Salient Observations. Now, these,
No, I did it wrong. Talk amongst yourselves, don't
These PechaKucha, if I'm pronouncing it correctly, presentations often deal with community challenges and exciting new initiatives, which is all very good and proper. I'm here to introduce you to something a little bit different. It's a bit of what I like to call stand-up philosophy. In the next 6 minutes 40, we're going to blow through a range of issues, including an introduction to the structure of logical inference and the truth status of propositions, paradoxes, word games, and game theory, non-existence, truth, and absurdity, and at the center of it all, the ontological status of flock pickers. Let's start with the basics. Here's a logical syllogism. All flock pickers are trade canisius. That was the first premise. Second premise, all flock pickers, all wham-whams are flock pickers. Third premise, all wham-whams are therefore trade canisius. We can restate this in the same situation as a conditional. If all wham-whams are flock pickers, they display the same characteristics flock pickers do. All flock pickers are trade canisius, therefore all wham-whams also are trade canisius. It's easy to assume you know more than you really do. Here's a syllogism that might sound right at first, but it turns out not to be valid. Some flock pickers are trade canisius, some wham-whams are flock pickers, therefore some wham-whams are trade canisius? Nope. You see, the trade canisius flock pickers might not be the same as the ones that are wham-whams. Gotcha. You have to be paying attention. Sometimes it's all flock pickers that are trade canisius, or some, and sometimes none. Now, if all flock pickers are trade canisius and no wham-whams are flock pickers, does it mean no wham-whams are trade canisius?
Yes.
No. Can't something be trade canisius without being a flock picker? I'd say so. Now I know what you're thinking. This guy is throwing around nonsense terms like wham-wham and flock picker that don't mean anything. And yet he claims to be talking about logic. Haha, dear concerned audience member. What's he so sure that they don't mean anything? The nature of meaning is a bit tricky. Do flock pickers exist? What does it mean to exist? Do unicorns exist? No? I bet you could describe one to me. If I told you a unicorn is a small slippery fish with 12 legs and a stinger, you'd cry out, "That's not true!" But of course it's not true. Unicorns don't exist. Some things that do exist are concrete entities, a Volkswagen, a toaster. And some things that exist are non-physical abstractions, justice, the number 37. Could it be that the flock picker is an abstract entity? He exists as a concept, and as such is real, even though he cannot be touched, taken for a walk, or filled with water to the line indicated. There are real things that don't exist in the concrete realm of our experience. Elizabeth Bennet has a kind of reality. Ask any Jane Austen fan. Hercules and Thor have a kind of reality, and indeed both have recently had films made about them. There's a kind of reality in fiction and myth, the realm of the unicorn. The reality status of abstractions was a hot topic among the ancient Greeks. Is a category of objects a real thing? Is tree real? I don't mean a physical tree like the ones growing out there. I mean, does the concept tree have a kind of reality? Plato said yes. Aristotle had his reservations. The same debate was picked up 1,500 years later by the medieval philosophers. The realists thought category terms like tree referred to actual realities. Ideas were at least as real as concrete objects. The nominalists, on the other hand, felt that only individual objects had reality and category terms were just puffs of breath. The medievals addressed all kinds of questions. John Buridan, 1295 to 1358, explored moral determinism when he told the story of a donkey standing equidistant between two equally yummy-looking bales of hay. It couldn't think of a reason to choose one rather than the other, and died of starvation. Here's another logic puzzle with an ancient pedigree. I'm going to make two statements. The sentence following this one is false. The sentence preceding this one is true. What are you going to do with that? Try to work your way through it. I dare you. Here's a modern puzzle in a similar vein. A man and his accomplice are being held for questioning in two separate rooms. They can't communicate to get their story straight. Should the man confess and plead for mercy, or should he maintain his innocence? Much depends on his prediction of what his partner will do. The prisoner's dilemma is an example of game theory, the complex dynamics of decision-making. My choice, X, in relation to situation Y, will be to some degree predicated on factor Z. But Z depends on other factors, including the probabilities regarding my choice, X. Ah, my head hurts already. Decision-making is hard. But what about moral judgments? Two ways of thinking about ethical choices would be the teleological model, which says moral choices depend on what the result of the action will be, and deontological ethics, which says right and wrong are determined by the very nature of the act itself. Ethical decisions are a lot harder when the moral ground is continually shifting under your feet. With moral relativism, there are no norms for appropriate behavior. Everything depends on context and contingencies, attitudes, which takes us back to the medieval philosophers. The realist school would say moral decision-making connects us to the larger architecture of reality. The Creator built a moral structure into the universe. Whereas the nominalists would say each moral choice stands on its own and must be evaluated on its own terms. Which, of course, takes us back to where we started, to the flock thinkers, which may or may not be trade pernicious, depending to some degree on whether or not they are real, and if so, in what sense. Actually, I made that up. That's not true. The preceding discussion doesn't even remotely lead us back to those wild and woolly flock thinkers. But unfortunately, the realities of time and circumstance do. Thank you very much.